can't really stand up. Like, you see how quickly Numlocked crumples there. He doesn't have the heals or the... So he doesn't have the passive heals from Brig. He doesn't have the shooty heals. What the fuck is that called? What is that called, actually? Armor pack, of course. So you can't, like, save somebody, which is probably the biggest thing that Brigitte offers, honestly. And you also can't, like, peel by bashing people that are running down Numlocked. And then you also don't have the D.Va there to be able to eat damage or just apply damage as well. So your front line crumples really quick. So the idea here, as far as I can tell, is to bait Numlocked and Suna. So they're going to run in, they're going to use bubbles early, and as they back out, they are looking for Team Envy to chase them into sight lines of Danid, who's then going to, well, I don't know why I'm pointing it out that way. He's going to punch them into that pillar. So the idea is Suna and Numlocked are going to survive by doing this like baity play. They're going to pull Team Envy in, and then they're going to get punched in the dick, I think, is the idea. But Numlocked died too quickly. So it's pretty difficult to be able to properly... And also Danid nearly died as well. So if that had worked at its, you know, at its best, and Numlocked had survived, they would have an opportunity to enter here. But also, Danid just doesn't have the health to be able to do that as well. Anytime the Doomfist goes in and you get a counter charge or a counter bash on him, so anytime Danid is too predictable and one of these guys gets a counter charge on him and both players are just stunned on the floor, the GOATS team is just going to destroy you because they have more resources to be able to find that kill. In the meantime, Hafikul's trying to generate his ultimate, but he's not doing it particularly efficiently. A big difference between British Hurricane and how Element Mystic play is that Doha's just crazy efficient with how he builds his EMPs. So he probably gets like 1 extra EMP per 4 minutes compared to Hafikul on this. Okay, now this is where it just lagged out and I couldn't even tell what the fuck happened. But you can kind of see what's been going on. So they use resources to try and stop Danid getting anything. So they use like the bash or maybe a self bubble from Sharp or something like that. And then they use the fact that Danid has taken bubble and the front line is pretty vulnerable and the back line is also really vulnerable as well. So all of these separate components are more vulnerable than they would be in GOATS, which operates much more as a unit. So you can wait for Danid to have the bubble used on him and try and apply crazy pressure to Numlocked, which they do in some of the fights. But they're also really prioritizing putting a lot of damage on Bok. They know that Bucket has to play a little further forwards to be able to keep healing Numlocked, because he's the only major source of healing now that the Brig is gone. So they are spamming him, and they are also pressuring him with Fire and Elevote by the look of it. So, but the point is that they are playing in their faces and denying them too much room, so they can't really get set up. So like, look how far back British Hurricane are when Hafikul decides to go for this EMP. Is it a good EMP? No, not really. But they managed to convert it into kills on stand and fire. But this is the weird situation where they lose 4v6, right? It's not the greatest EMP in the world, but it's a decent one. I won't shit talk Hafi too bad. It's okay. It does the job. But let's take a look at this fight. Because they don't have the consistent sustain and like bash to be able to take people down from the Brig, they're really relying on Danid to be able to get shit done in this fight. Otherwise, Numlocked and Suna are still not really going to be able to do that much. Especially because Crimzo just ints into them and manages to find a couple of picks. And Suna pushed around this way, and Numlocked got pushed back this way. So if they had just stayed together, and especially if they'd had a Brig, because otherwise there is no way you would have been able to turn this fight if they'd had a brick. If they'd just been playing Sombra Goats, is my point. Like, they won that based off the EMP. They didn't win that based off what Daned was doing. So if they had just been playing Sombra Goats, they would have still found opportunities to find an EMP like that and then easily carry through. But because they're playing a scrappier comp, where the front line doesn't have as much help, and they're trying to put Daned in positions, their front line can't just kind of int forwards and find the kills, or like go through Hotel and try and chase down Sharp or something like that. And then Tsuna is weak, comes around, has essentially done nothing in this fight because it has failed to save Pocket or Numlocked. And Daned isn't able to do anything either. And then Daned gets killed. Sharp's there with the counter grav. They've got no diva to be able to eat it, so they just can't do anything in double grav situations. The grav is not a big ultimate for British Hurricane because they can't really follow it up. They do get another EMP at some point here, but then there's a couple more neutral fights. If British Hurricane were running Sombra Goats here, I think they would have already taken the point. If they were running Goats, I think they would have already taken the point as well. Ooh. So, another thing that they do a lot is okay, so they come into the backlines here, and they put the nano on Daned. And this is similar to what Element Mystic will do. The idea is that you nano your Doom so you don't have to commit as many resources to him. Outside of that, you can kind of let him run around a little bit because he's much more tanky. It's not so much for the damage as far as I'm aware, it's more for the tankiness. So Daned goes into the back, and then while the idea is that while Envy are looking behind to try and deal with Daned, your front line just goes like choo-choo straight into them and kind of T-bones them, broadsides them. But instead, you can't really see, but I think what happens is they know that Daned isn't going to be able to get the kill in the back on Tsuna, so they just push forward and they just crumple Numlocked again. I think. But I can't exactly remember what happens. So they still have Stand and Jaru pretty far forwards, and they're able to sustain with the front line. They're not really able to run them over at all. And then Daned can't find picks, and if your Doomfist can't find picks, this comp is just useless. Like, there's so many times where they would lose, but Sparkle comes in from the top and finds some crazy pick on Element Mystic, that is, which doesn't make the comp good. It just makes him good. And then, in this fight, they've traded Crimzo for Numlocked. There's an opportunity to take down some other players, but they're sound barriered. So when the EMP comes through here, there's just absolutely no possible follow-up. Like, when this EMP comes through, Yofi's died, Numlock's died. There's Daned, who's half health and has just used his abilities to escape, I think. And Tsuna. And Tsuna doesn't have a shield, so he's just going to get destroyed. So this EMP attempt was just a bad idea overall, I think. And this to me just indicates that like British Hurricane think they can clutch fights too. Both teams when things get a bit scrappy seem to not respect discipline at all. Like why not save some of these ults that you used here? Why not save them for when you actually have EMP available? And then you can dive with the nano when you use EMP. Or you can save Shatter for EMP Shatter. But instead, they don't have the discipline to just wait with some of these ults, and they try and skill it instead. Which is kind of the nature of the Doomfist Sombra comp, skilling it, rather than being disciplined. So I was watching this like, what the fuck are British Hurricane doing? What can they do? Isn't that the case with any DPS comp? If the player is good, then it works. I mean, no, you couldn't just run 6 DPS. Well, I suppose you could if they were all aimbotting, maybe, but... Most comps don't have the same pop-off ability as Doomfist. Like, if you're playing Tracer into Goats, doesn't matter, you could be the best player in the world, you're still not going to get anything done. It requires a hero with significant, that's quite nice as well, but that's just, I mean, you switch to Goats with a tiny amount of time remaining, and they just read the fact that Tsuna's going to go for a countergraph, so they just cover him with Defense Matrix. Clutch Gods is generally not a good thing, though. Being Clutch Gods generally means you're making mistakes in your neutral game or your ults to put you in poor situations, and then you're committing them to try and clutch. And people don't really remember the times that it goes badly, they more remember the times that it goes well. There were a couple of times, especially on Nepal and Junkertown, where Envy tried to clutch and they just threw ults away. Just threw them away. So against good teams, a team like Envy will get punished really hard, I think, for that kind of attitude where they just think they can clutch everything. But against sloppy or uncoordinated teams, or teams that don't respect the ult economy as well, they'll be able to come out with stuff like that. But I don't think any of those situations on King's Row were crazy from... Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm watching this map, and I'm not like, oh my god, Team Envy are fantastic. I'm watching it going, what the fuck are British Hurricane doing? Now, having said that, the one thing that was really cool from King's Row was Crimzo just absolutely running forwards to try and clutch. And he did manage to kill Bucket and did a lot of damage to Numlocked. Without that, they probably don't turn that fight. So good decision by Crimzo to absolutely hold W and just run at them as a Zen. But, and that's not a situation where you can get punished, because the fight would be lost if you didn't do that. Now, Hanamura was poopy as well. Real bad. So let's take a look at Hanamura. If it goes badly, it wasn't clutch. Well, it was an attempt. An attempt was made. Yeah, I think teams that try and build around clutching things are doing it wrong. That's my main gripe with Philadelphia Fusion Icelandic, is that they throw ults in to try and clutch so often, and it fucks their ult economy because they're actually playing against good teams. Georgetown 19 says, if British Hurricane begins consistently choking, couldn't it be argued perhaps they simply aren't as good a team as people once thought? Well, a couple of things. The choking happens in big games for British Hurricane. The finals and this. Very different to their regular season performance. The difference in performance is very visible as well. So you can't argue that they were always shit. They were either good in the regular season and something went wrong in the postseason, which could be the case, or they're always as good as they are in the regular season, they just choke and underperform massively in big games, which I think is the case. Especially because, I mean, you hear from guys like Numlocked as well, where they say, our comms just went to shit in the game, which indicates something is specifically going wrong in big matches. But it could be the case that they've gotten worse. They're certainly playing more set strats than they are playing Goats. So far in this whole match, up until this point, they've played about 1 minute of Goats at the end of King's Row. Apart from that, they played May Goats on Nepal, and they played Bunker on Nepal. And they played... Oh no, they played Goats on defense of King's Row. I don't know why I forgot about that. So maybe like, I don't know, 7 minutes of Goats. But for a lot of Hanamura, they don't play Goats either. So that seems to be a bit of a difference from the regular season too. They've tried to add more flavor to their gameplay, which may just make the whole thing a little worse. All right, wait there. I am actually quite surprised how well Team Envy are performing, even with a stand-in. I thought Team Envy would be pretty uncoordinated without Trill. But Stand looks good, and they play pretty well around him. Not fantastic, but pretty well. They don't tend to play around Stand that much, actually. They play more around Sharp. Or weirdly, sometimes around Crimzo. But British Hurricane are focusing a lot on killing Stand, so they're kind of using him as bait a little bit. Alright. Oh, by the way, British Hurricane unbelievably choke the end fight on this map as well, which I'm sure you're all looking forward to. Which I've already looked at the replay of it because I was like amazed that it happened live in the game. So I watched a clip of it back, and it's a huge throw from British Hurricane. It's a nice clutch from Envy as well, in terms of they play it fairly well, but it should never have worked if you're playing against a team that has discipline. And British Hurricane just scattered. So we'll get to that choke at the end, but where's Trilly got moved up to Dallas Fuel? Do you think Envy should hold on to Stand? I mean, it's working, why not? Seems pretty good. Get another high ping main tank. Alright, so these are the compositions that are running at the moment. So British Hurricane are running the Gladiators a kind of composition, where you have a bunker comp, but you have Hafikul holding on the May to try and isolate people and take them out. But honestly, I haven't seen Gladiators work this particularly well, and I also I think it's worse than just a default bunker comp, honestly. It's a little unnecessarily complicated, and if one piece falls, the entire thing falls very quickly. Whereas at least with a bunker comp, you can delay a little bit. Like, Bucket dies instantly here. Nobody's able to put sights on him. Sparker hasn't been able to put pressure on him. They don't have a Diva to be able to put pressure on him. Hafikul isn't holding with everybody else. He's holding down there, so they can't put pressure on him. Jofi's on the other side of the map, so you can't put pressure on him. They don't have a biotic field because of immortality field, sorry, because of where Yofi's holding. So Envy just break it super fast. It's like an overly elaborate comp, I think, that Hurricane didn't look like they really knew how to deal with playing it. Explain why the Bastion isn't with the Orisa. It's like the Orisa is like bait. The idea of it, as far as I'm aware, it's a fucking weird, complicated strat. The idea of it, I think, is that you have these guys here as like a little bit of bait. So they want to spam the shield, they want to go on them, this kind of shit. When they come through this choke point, the May can be used. Hafikul's going to hold, like, generally speaking, around here. And then he can rotate around this area. Like, this area is kind of Hafikul's. And the idea seems to be that you can wall people off and get picks with them. Get picks on them. And if they try and push, they're in the sightline of the Bastion as well. But a bunch of teams do just run the Bastion on this side as well. And the Bastion doesn't do the same amount of damage from... you could see him where he's holding at the time. He's like up there. And then the idea is that if they instead decide to go on Daned, they're in the sightline of Sparker. And they have the immortality field from Yofi. But because everyone's split up, you're much easier to pick off individually. Like Elevote does here. Like, if the Bastion was here, there's no way that Elevote would have been able to get over here. But because there's spread on the Bastion, he doesn't do that much damage to Elevote. Elevote comes in really quickly with his Concussion Blast, and then he just kills Bucket. And he's over the top of Sparker, so what's he supposed to do? So, I don't know. I think this comp is... Oh, this strat is a bit too complex. And I can't think of a time where it's really worked that well for Gladiators either. Although I don't think Gladiators run it exactly the same as this. Am I going to play Sekiro today or not? It depends on Bren. I'm down to play if Bren is. Why not just push Haffy instead? Well, then they drop down to save Haffy. If you push Haffy Call, he uses Ice Block, and then they drop to save him. So they can throw Immortality Field, and then they'll position the Bastion so that they're shooting down at you while you try and kill Haffy. So the idea is kind of to use him as bait. But he's not just bait, he also serves a purpose. And then the Mei also is necessary for boosting people into positions. Like, you need to boost to be able to get the Orisa on the high ground. So if you want to reset back up, you need the Mei there. Oh yeah, what did they do here? So they ran the same composition except Sparker's on Sombra. And Bucket's on his own. So he gets picked. And the only thing they have to save... Oops, just spat everywhere. Got beef in my mouth. The only thing they have to save Bucket is his own Sleep Dart. Or like maybe a Bionade. If he can land a Bionade on Elevator or something. And then once Bucket's dead, this area becomes much more viable to push. Especially if you can push these guys out and then spam this shield. If you manage to push these guys down the stairs and kill Bucket or push him away, well then Danid and Numlocked have got no healing. Like, actually no healing. So, you can apply a lot of pressure that way. And yeah, it's a similar strategy here. If you try and push up the stairs to these guys, you take a bunch of damage, you get halted back into the Bastion, and then they've got the Immortality Field from Yofi up top, and they've also got Ice Block up top as well, so it can be difficult to actually punish these guys who seem like they're holding in aggressive positions. And Daned also has a bit of a sightline on you. And they're running a pretty scattered comp that aims to break the shield as well, so. But like, Yofi could have easily been killed there. And they have managed to kill Haffy. Did they manage to hack Haffy before they killed him? Is that how they killed him? No, they just killed him out of Ice Block, I think. Yeah, Haffy used Ice Block and then they just killed him afterwards. And also, you don't have any point pressure. You don't have anyone to play the point from British Hurricane either. It's like, I don't really understand why British Hurricane are going for such unnecessarily complex strats that they don't seem that well practiced on. Like, it doesn't seem like British Hurricane crazy fluid around the map. I'm not watching this and being like, holy shit, Hurricane looks so practiced. Like, their movements are really clean, their rotations, they all look like they know where they're going. When someone pushes, they all instantly react to it. Like, they kind of just look a bit chaotic. Like they're improvising. Not that they're improvising, it looks like a preset plan, obviously. But in the fight, it looks like they're... I don't know. It doesn't look that clean. Whereas, we know that they can play goats pretty well. Like, are they scared of the NA team's goats? That would be strange to me. Maybe they just think that the NA teams won't be as well practiced against these comps, so even though British Hurricane themselves aren't the most practiced in the world, it'll be more difficult to deal with it. This was a bit of a feed from Haffy from what I remember. Yep, that was a feed from Haffy. Nice feed. And Sparker dies with EMP. But these guys are still pretty difficult to take off the high ground when you don't have that much spam. I mean, they're running Sombra Winston Goats at the moment, so it's pretty hard to be able to break a bunker with that composition. They're just relying on the EMP. They're going to try and drag people to point and then EMP. Or they're going to EMP bomb or something like that. But the British Hurricane, if they had anybody to be able to play the point here, if they were playing with a D.Va instead of the Mei, for example, and just swapping over to Mei to boost them back onto the high ground at the end of every fight, if they actually had a D.Va, they wouldn't have given up these 2 ticks. It would be much more of a traditional bunker setup, so you could argue that that might be easier to break. I don't think it's that much easier to break. I think it's harder to effectively run as the defensive team, this comp, rather than a traditional bunker. And it also doesn't have the same kind of point pressure. Okay, so here's the EMP. Now, why they went on the high ground, I don't really know, but they would have just bomb EMP'd them on the high ground anyway. So maybe they're holding on the low ground because it's easier to get away from a bomb EMP, because EMP bomb rather, because you just run around the corner. I mean, what do you do if you're up on the high ground and you get EMP bombed? There's nowhere to hide. Having said that, maybe the Mei could just wall you. I don't really know. But it seems like they don't really have a plan when the bomb comes in. Actually, now that I say it, it seems like Ice Wall would be a very good thing to try and block the EMP bomb. And if you don't get EMP bombed, it's difficult to break bunker with Winston Goats. So I don't know. If I was Happy, I'd be trying to maybe look for the Ice Wall to block off the bomb. That seems like a much better use of the Mei, rather than just walling them as they come in. Because you see there, they just got trashed instantly by that combo. What are your thoughts on Hurricane's chance in the lower bracket? I think they should be able to beat Atlanta. But then they face Angry Titan, who beat them recently, and at that point, I don't know, it's anybody's game. If they don't beat Atlanta, though, I think British Hurricane will have had one of the worst tournament runs of any team that I can remember in recent history, anyway. Because if they manage to lose to Atlanta, presumably they'll have been playing pretty poorly again. Because British Hurricane played so poorly here on 2, maybe 3 of the maps, and still nearly beat Team Envy. Like, it went to a 5th. So if they play back at their norm, or what they were playing in the regular season, or what they were playing on like Nepal and Junkertown and parts of Lijiang, I think they should be fine to beat Atlanta. It depends whether they choke again. Do you know the story of why South America is blacklisted from NA scrims? No, I've no idea. What is that story? Thank you, Cut Short Bren, for the 4 months in a row. We out here, 4-month gang. Gang. Toogie Boogie sub-champion. 44 months in a row. Listen, keep your 4-month gang. The 44 months in a row. Cheers to that. Thank you, Toogie Boogie. Smokey Toby with 100 bits. Off topic. What's your quick maths on Clockwork Vendetta's viability and contenders? I talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this VOD. I don't really know. I think you can play... I think you can play Goats against it, but it's difficult. I think it's pretty easy to break with like triple or quad DPS kind of stuff. In EU contenders, because they play a lot of Goats and because they play so aggressive and because they're sometimes a bit brainless, I could see Clockwork Vendetta actually doing reasonably well, mid-table kind of thing. Unless they just get figured out and then everybody decides to run like these quad DPS comps against them all the time. If they refuse to change, they probably won't do very well. If they can also play maybe something else, then they'll be fine. Didn't I say they were the best team? I said they could be the best team. And that was during the regular season when they hadn't choked. And before the Korean teams started playing like exclusively Sombra. I still think if the Korean teams played Sombra Doomfist or like Sombra Goats into these Atlantic Showdown teams, I don't think they'd win. I think they'd have to switch to normal Goats. And then I think it's a toss-up. I don't really know who the best team in the world at normal Goats is. In the contenders level, I mean. I don't fucking know. But I don't think the Sombra Goats stuff that the Korean contenders teams are running on every map would work against the EU or NA teams because they play much more aggressive. Whenever they do it, ends up in a stomp like spawn camping, not even worth the 2 hours. Well, that's okay. That was quite a predictable story. I thought there was going to be more to it. Yeah, as much as I love the passion that the South American scene has, I think it was pretty unrealistic to expect them to do anything here. Same with the Aussie teams, honestly, even though I love them. Passionate scenes, but they don't have the regular competition against better players, and they don't have the same size of player base to be able to improve to a level where they could do well in a LAN tournament like this that only happens twice a year. Maybe 3 times if you include World Cup or something. Alright, so the end of this attack round has one of the most enormous throws I've ever seen. But also, British Hurricane were just getting slammed repeatedly by these Bionades. And that's what also happened to Angry Titans when they were playing against Fusion Uni. Is that, for whatever reason, I don't really know why, the Bionades were finding unbelievable value. I don't know if they've got someone in their front line really accurately relaying defense matrix to them, or if the Annas are just absolute gods at being able to find these windows, or if it's the Divas' fault. Like if the EU Divas are just shit at being able to eat Bionades or predict when they're coming out or something, I don't know. But for whatever reason, the Bionades in this series from Crimzo and also in Fusion Uni series, especially in Fusion Uni series from Alarm, were just free. Actually free. So British Hurricane are also playing a little slow, trying to loop stand in, but he gets nanoed. Trying to bully him back a little bit. So now they have a few ults to push with. Sparker hasn't really been able to get too much charge up. He's still a little behind. Another huge Bionade. Bucket, Hafikul, Numlocked. They overlay their support ults, which is just really bad comms from British Hurricane. Presumably what happened is Yofi realizes that these 3 are purpled. This is the only thing that I can think. Is that they realize these 3 are purpled, and so Yofi's like, okay, I'm going to sound barrier them. But then the purple comes off, so Bucket's like, okay, I'm going to trance. Or maybe Yofi's like, okay, we're going to obviously save trance for the Grav, so let's sound barrier. But Yofi was still building his... They pushed and he was only on 90%. I don't know. There's a multitude of ways that this could have gone wrong in the calls for British Hurricane. Like Bucket might have asked Yofi at this point, "Do you have barrier?" And he says no or something. And so he waits for the purple to come off, and then he trances. I don't know. They literally press their Q buttons at the exact same moment. So whatever the issue was, they really fuck up the comms here. And it just gives Team Envy a free grab, and it sets up a situation where Fire has sound barrier that he didn't need to use, but he uses it at the end there anyway. I mean, they could have just saved that for the next fight. Lads, we've laid our supports, lads! I mean, that would make more sense for British Hurricane than it did for Paris Eternal. Possibly. Except that Cruz does actually sound like that, and Numlock doesn't. Numlock would quietly chuckle and say, "Oh, bugger. Come on, guys. We can still do it." That's more of a Numlocked. So this was also a bit weird from British Hurricane. They've got Grav Bomb available, and Team Envy don't have anything. They've only got their own bomb. So rather than go for the Grav Bomb combo, which they think Elevote is just gonna shoot up his bomb to stop them following up. So instead of trying to like maybe waste both of these ults and not find that many kills and it just be negated by Elevote, I think the idea for them is that they want to bomb in towards the back, isolate Stand, and then like hook in on him, kill him, and then they have the Grav afterwards as well if they need to clean up the fight. But Elevote is up top here and just snipes him in the back. Just snipes Hafikul. And also, they get hit with a fat Bionade while Hafikul's dead. And Sparker just dies with the Grav. And now Team Envy are going to have a bunch of other ults up as well. But this is still a difficult fight for Team Envy to be able to win. They don't have a support ult to counter the Grav. Elevote has Bomb. So they have two defensive ultimates here. The Bomb and the Earth Shatter can both be used, not in the Grav. Obviously, Elevote can't get Grav, but if he bombs to stop them following up the Grav and Stan tries to shatter, that's two things that Hurricane have to be aware of. So Grav goes in, Bomb comes out. They have to worry about it a little bit. They get knocked to the floor. Stan goes for the shatter. They haven't managed to disengage well enough. Sharp uses the Grav anyway to try and fight it. Sharp wastes his Grav. Daned feeds. So this is the beginning of the big throw. This is the big throw, ladies and gentlemen. The large throw. The biggest throw. So Daned is over here. And he's also purple. And he doesn't have Rally anymore. Now instead of Daned coming back with the rest of his team where they can protect him, Daned pushes round into their Zarya. Into their high energy, full energy Zarya. So this is a 6v4 fight. And Elevote's just remeching, I think. And Daned gets caught out because he's gone the exact wrong way of the rest of his team and dies. So now it's a 5v4. But it's a 5v4 that they should still win. Elevote comes in, feeds a bit of ult charge, thank you very much. At this point, what is this positioning? You've got 2 of the players in the front line and 3 of the players in the back line, all separated by the bell. So the call to focus Elevote and play point, as in play these stairs and play point. Why do I keep... my default color is yellow and it doesn't show up very well at all. I feel like the blue is so much better. The call here to play passive, to play safe, consolidate your position, make sure that Sparker doesn't die when he's on half health, get these motherfuckers back, is not heard for some reason. They don't realize that these guys are in the back farming Elevote, making sure that he dies. So the front line hasn't really backed off. Even with all of this time that's still elapsed, and Stand coming through on the wrecking ball and stuff, the front line is still really far forwards. And they're really far forwards without watching this doorway. So they can only see what's happening here. So as Stand comes in, they discord him, they get knocked back. Look at the difference, look at the distance here between everyone. Bucket's here, Hafikul's in the corner, Numlocked and Sparker are over here. Nobody is watching this doorway at all. Nobody has any idea where Sharp is. Sharp is the only player they have to care about. The only one. He's the only one that can do any damage. So they're all just focusing Stand. Here's Sharp. On the right hand side. Through the doorway that nobody's looking through. Positioned too far forward to be able to react to it. Spread out too far to be able to do anything about it. With no damage to be able to counter it. So Sharp just walks up. Takes the sound barrier. And fucking lasers down Sparker. And Numlock's on no health as well. The 2 players that were really far forward, which I don't really know why they were that far forward. It would have made sense to play more passive than that. I don't really know. The sound barrier is used, but Numlock is still too far forwards. The sound barrier just gets rinsed off him as well, and he's too low and just dies anyway. The sound barrier is too late to be able to get Sparker, but Sparker had already died by the time Yofi got it, so that's not Yofi's fault. It was the positioning of the front line and the fact that nobody is trying to consolidate after the fight, after they've got an advantage. So they've lost the entirety of their front line. Danhead has come back in on Wrecking Ball, so can't even do that much. And Sharp is just melting everyone. Because they can't do anything. Jaws says he has to eat the grav, but the fight's already lost. Nobody can deal with Sharp. You can't kill it. There's not enough damage. Not enough damage, not enough shielding. And they lose the 6v4 engagement. Because Danhead fed, and their front line was too aggressive. Positionally. And so that's not... Again, this is why I say, like... Against a more disciplined team, if they went back in there and used Sound Barrier, and used Grav, and they'd already used the Grav, I think Envy get punished by a better team. But this is British Hurricane making big mistakes. So, that's a sad Seb Barton. You don't like to see it. You hate to see it. As Custer would say, you hate to see it. Now, Nox always looks like the coolest motherfucker on earth. So, but he's angry. That's his angry face. He's saying, come on guys, you're better than this. You're better than this. 3 people dead and they didn't win, they just got outskilled, to be honest. That makes them a worse team. Stop making excuses. British Hurricane is just bad. If you're not able to be good every time, you're just a bad team. What? I'm not sure that's true. Performance is not a straight line. It's alright, Rastin. It's alright, my dude. Oh my god. This couch is the hottest object known to mankind. And I don't mean that as like in a porn sense, like hot, like sexy. I mean literally, it melts your thighs. I remember actually, I was wearing these shorts. In Krefeld on that couch when we were doing Takeover 2. And the whole of the back of my jeans, the whole of the back of my thighs was drenched in sweat. Absolutely drenched. I stood up and I literally had just leg marks and ass cheek marks all down the back of my shorts. But because they're using like incredibly powerful lights on a leather couch, and we had 4 people on the couch, and I was just sweating my balls off. So much ass sweat. So much. Sergio pissed himself. If you piss yourself, I don't know about you, I don't tend to tuck my dick in like between my thighs when I sit down. Maybe that's just me, but if I pissed myself, it would be mostly on the front, I think. This was quite localized to the back. It was like a rainstorm had poured from the back of my thighs and my ass. Maybe I just shit myself with pure saline water, but I think it was because it was warm. I'm not a medical expert, but I think it was sweat. And so, a theme so far as well has kind of been Danhead getting caught out of position by running too far forwards at the end of fights. Now, I don't know who was calling too much in the match or whatever, but I wouldn't be really surprised if it was Danhead. Because he looks like he's getting a bit overeager. And he's getting really punished for it. Didn't Uber have a boner during a takeover cast? I don't think so. I don't think so. Oh, do you mean because he had a pillow on his lap? Is that what you're on about? Hmm. So here, I saw Smoothbrain Twitch chat again was like, why a British Hurricane just feeding at their spawn? Now, having said that, that was a feed by Tsuna. But the idea of this comp is not too bad, you know? Like, they just... I don't know whether this just doesn't get played in America at all. Oh, give me a decent angle. Come on. The idea is the GOATS team plays like inside here, and then if they position up top with the Bastion, like this is my drawing of a Bastion. Choo choo. This is my Bastion. Do you like it? And then he's got eyes and a smiley face. Okay, that's the Bastion. He looks like he has a very long nose, but that's a Bastion. No, and it's not a well-hung Bastion. That's not a penis, guys. No, it's not. Tobbs, thank you for the 23 months. What if you wanted to go to heaven, but God said yeet? You know, one of the big philosophical. Wow. One of the big philosophical questions of our time. King of Squirrels has resubscribed for 19 months. Love him. Love him. Okay. So say the Bastion sets up there. You can push here and here, like where Tsuna was trying to go, because the Bastion can't actually see you. He can't see all the way down there if he's sat up top. He's a sad Bastion. He can't show you his nose. He can't sprinkle his nose bullets on you. But I think Elevote like juggled Tsuna. I think Tsuna actually got stuck on this, which is weird. And then he got booped. Like Tsuna at this point wants to be here so that they can't get an angle on him. Like that arrow wouldn't work. Like the best angle you can get is like where Tsuna is right now. But Tsuna got juggled and just got destroyed because I think they hit him with a direct rocket plus a bunch of damage from... Actually, maybe it wasn't from Crimzo because he's only on 5%. Maybe it's... I don't know, let's see. Okay, so... Elevote goes up to 12%. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's Crimson. I don't know. I don't know who else does damage to him. Whatever. Could Haffy not have saved him? Yeah, I think he's already used his defense matrix because you need to matrix the Bastion as your team gets into position. Like as your team goes aggressive. So I think he thought Tsuna was safe, but Tsuna got juggled by the rocket, and I think Elevote just hit 2 directs and was maybe like a little bit of damage coming from Crimzo or Sharp or someone. Was it a Jaru headshot? I don't think so. I think he was at like 11% anyway, wasn't he? I think like Jaru... Look, Jaru's already at 10% by hitting a headshot onto Numlocked or hitting some damage onto Numlocked. I don't know how much each shot gives you in terms of percentage. Then he's at 11%, so I don't think he gets headshot by Jaru. Because he stays at 11%. Is it Sharp? Oh, it's Sharp. Oh, it's a headshot from Sharp. Sharp jumps up to 26%. Okay. There we go. Problem solved, everybody. It was Sharp. Anyway. It's not really important whose it was. IIDX Plasma. Thank you for 2 months. 2 whole months. That's a long time. Alright, so now they're just inting onto the cart, one at a time, trying to slow it down as much as possible. Let's skip it forward a bit. And it's so difficult to dislodge Sharp from this position. They have to push around him to block the cart and try and play underneath, but Sharp just has free angles. So does Jaru, so does Elevote. Hard to pin anybody down. It's kind of more about losing slowly if you're British Hurricane. You're not expected to win. You're just trying to take time off the clock. Anyway, why am I watching this map? I don't even think I really need to watch this map. British Hurricane played this map well. Is there anything that I'm trying to gather from Junkertown? Junkertown was just British Hurricane playing how they normally do. Or at least how they normally do did in the regular season. I think the next useful map is Lijiang. I'm going to skip ahead to Lijiang because I don't want to get stuck on this match forever. Oh fuck, what have I done? Because I also want to look at the Fusion Uni games. I will say, look at this spicy shatter at the end from Numlocked. Where is this? Okay, Numlocked hit a fucking fatty shatter here. Look at this. So Numlocked and Happy are the only people with ults. Overtime. Sooner had just wasted his grav, I think. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Look at this fight. This dribbly fight. Elevote's on Bastion. They haven't managed to take him down. He sets up. Daned's like, oh fuck, what do I do against this? No chance, mate. Tsuna grabs. With Happy and Daned both definitely dead. Numlocked can't do a thing. Tsuna and the two supports are the only people alive, and he grabs. Bro. What? Shaking my head. But okay, he grabs. Skip forward a little bit. They've got Bastion on the cart. They got a wrecking ball. Numlocked comes in like an absolute chad. And this shatter was, woo boy. Watch Seb Barton. Can you see him approach? So these guys all drop from the front. And they're like, oh, they're all dropping. Then they're like, wait, where's the Rhine? Kapow! He's behind you, motherfuckers. Destroyed. That was a nice little play. Now, having said that, if they read the fact that no Rhine dropped down, they potentially could have destroyed Numlocked and kept it rolling. But you know, overtime is when you're supposed to make those clutch plays. And then I think he hit another nutty one to finish it out. I think Numlocked hit another fat shatter here. Happy came around the side. They caught them in the grav. The trance was forced out. They killed Stand. And then Numlocked shatters Fire and Sharp. I guess it's relatively fat. And they also had the EMP available. I mean, British Hurricane literally just rolled Junkertown. They played really nicely, very well coordinated. It looked good from them. They were playing mostly Sombra Goats, actually, on offense. But they played the spacing of it pretty well. So Lijiang is really the most important part of this. Oh, not the most important part, but the only part that's important, which is left. Seb fucking Barton. Default 3-3 for both teams. Yeah, it's the same venue as Take TV, yeah. So, they basically just overcommit to this fight, I think. You can see, they take an early bubble and do a lot of damage to Sharp. So I think they think they can do more damage to... they think they can kill Sharp, but he gets healed. Armor Pack and Bubble both go on stand, and Numlocked just gets suckered in. It was a nice disengage from Team Envy, and British Hurricane overchased it. So, they take this fairly easily. Elevote literally went home? What do you mean? What do you mean Elevote went home? He lives close enough to just go home at the end of the event? Someone that was in here is PMing people scam links. Well, guys, don't click on any links that people randomly give you in the chat. Thanks for letting me know, but I don't really know what I can do about that. Oh yeah, the Angry Titans players live at the Take TV place. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, so Elivote comes in from behind. It's a nice bash from Daned, but I think Bucket panics and pops the trance. I can't really think of a reason why Bucket uses his trance here. Maybe you guys can come up with one. They do a lot of damage. Daned bashes. Maybe the rest of Angry Titans is right on top of them. No, they probably could have saved that. But maybe they think they can just engage with the trance. They know the grabs aren't up. They're just looking for an opportunity to fight. They do actually manage to find a really nice pin onto Stand, and then Stand gets whip shot off the side. But here they overextend again. Instead of just solidifying on the point, they overchase people. And they're chaotic. They're all over the place. The bomb comes in from Elivote, and they have to, and they panic. So as soon as the bomb comes out, they beat, which makes no sense. Cannot think why this beat comes out from Yofi. Except just pure panic. Their focus fire is horrible. They haven't managed to turn the point. They're not focusing the player that's on the point. They're trying to find kills outside of it. They beat on the one opportunity where they can't use beat because the bomb is outside. The beat is still wearing away when Sharp goes for the grav. So not a great grav by Sharp. He should have waited a couple of seconds. And Crimzo ults to try and take advantage of the fact that they graved. So weird from both sides. When Danid drops out of the grav, he still keeps going forwards, so he takes a shit ton of damage, gets stunned, and has to use his bash to disappear. Shatter comes out, so Numlock's actually playing this pretty well. He's trying to protect the whole of his team, he's pushing forward, seeing if they can get space, but his team doesn't have a vision for what they want to do. Sharp's on the ground, he knows that he can't do anything about it, he backs off. And Suna dies. How does Suna die, actually? So Tsuna's here. Suna is just hanging out. Lasering down Elivote. But he steps outside again. So this is the area that they're fighting in. If they had just killed the people that were contesting the point, they would have flipped this ages ago. Or if they had picked a target and gone hard into them. Or if they tried to bait someone in, or if they'd pushed together with Daned so that they could get a bash on someone, or pushed together with Yofi so that they could boop somebody into them. But instead, what they keep doing is setting up the perimeter around here, and then just occasionally having one guy wander past it. Like Daned wandered past it, and then had to bash his way back in. Now it's Tsuna's turn. Tsuna is here. I don't know whether you guys can quite see, but Tsuna was around here. Wandered forwards and doesn't realize that now is the time that they're all backing off. So as the rest of the team backs off, I mean, look how far away he is from the rest of his team. This is the rest of British Hurricane here, and this is Tsuna. He hasn't even been bashed at this point, but he does. He gets bashed, and then he gets killed because he's too far ahead. Because when they find a pick, when they kill Stand, or when they kill anyone, they're really bad at consolidating. In this game, they're not usually that bad, but in this match they were really terrible at it. It just looks like they panic when they're winning. They panic, which is just like a classic choke. And Envy, sure, they're disciplined. But, well, in that situation, their positioning is disciplined. Their ult usage is certainly sometimes not. But their positioning when they're down is still pretty good. But this is all fucked up based on that one fight where they should have won. Like, when should they have flipped? I mean, fuck, they should have flipped it at like 40%. They probably should have flipped this at 40%. If they're able to get Discord Orb on Yuffie, who's the... sorry, not Yuffie, Fire. Fire is the person that's contesting the point the whole time. If they're able to get Discord Orb on him and pressure him with Hafikul and Bucket, or like Hafikul and Yuffie, or if they're able to boop him so that then he falls to the floor and Danid can bash him and they manage to find that kill, like, the team should be trying to kill Fire, who's contesting the point. And instead they keep making these like ventures out into no man's land. And they should have capped this at like max, it should have been 50% by the time they flipped. And instead it gets to 99% and they're in the middle of another fight. And they lose because the ults are against them, because they lost such a pivotal fight at 50%. Control sometimes can just come down to one fight. If you fuck up a really pivotal fight on Control, you've just lost the whole stage. Well, no, actually, it always comes down to 2. Because you always have the opening fight, and then you always have like either a 6 ult v 6 ult or like a neutral fight, or there's always something where the economy balance is in the middle. So there's always 2 important fights in Control, but sometimes if you lose both of those, you're screwed. In this one, I don't really mind either of the comps. The Doomfist goats you can actually make work pretty well on Control Center. I was a little surprised recently that Element Mystic don't run Doomfist on this. They tend to run like Sombra goats or just normal goats on this map. But Doomfist is pretty good here. It's one of his better maps. So I don't mind running Doomfist on this. And the Mei can be pretty decent too. So this, I think, comes down to execution and understanding how the enemy comp works. Now that is such a deep dive from Danid. And the rest of British Hurricane can't really follow up on it because of the wall. Because you can't do deep dives like that against the Mei team because the rest of your team can't push forward and help you. So Danid's lucky to survive that one, I think. And I think it just... They managed to push once the wall disappears. They've managed to get enough space. They've like got all of this room now is British Hurricanes. If they'd lost Danid though, they would have lost this fight afterwards. So they're a little lucky that Danid escapes, in my opinion. I think it's very possible there that Danid dies. But if Danid doesn't die, you've bought a bunch of room. And they manage to isolate Stan and do a good job at focusing him down. They get a nice bash on him. They do a lot of damage to him. And then Danid comes in at the end and finishes him off. So now they want to stabilize, which they manage to do fairly well. They don't extend too far in. And it's a decent start by Hurricane. And at this point, you're thinking, alright, British Hurricane won the first map that was Control. Then they threw 2 maps horribly. Then they won Junkertown and they played really well there. I said in my Discord at this point, if British Hurricane win, I'm not sure they deserve it. Because they haven't been playing that well. Like, they straight up threw King's Row and Hanamura. And played pretty horribly. So at this point, I was kind of wanting, well, not wanting, but it would have been weird to me if British Hurricane had won this map, because then they would only have won 2 Control maps in Junkertown, and kind of the maps that are more a test of your fundamentals, like how really good you are at like goats, set the neutral, this kind of stuff. They failed enormously. Now, I haven't said that, they also weren't playing that much of default goats on those maps. This is unfortunate for Numlocked. Now, I think this is random from Elevote, just to catch off Hafikul. But maybe not. Because I think they're doing the same thing again, where Danid's gone in for a super deep dive. And the rest of their team is going to try and push forward and help and like take all of this space for free. So they're essentially like buying space with Danid. So I think the wall is just to stop them moving forwards from Elevote. But then Numlocked uses his shatter. I don't think this is like some crazy reaction wall to block the shatter. I think it's just an unfortunate coincidence. But then Numlocked tries to charge in to fix it, which I think is just the wrong play. Like, he tries to charge here to go into either Jaru or stand, but he just gets bashed by Jaru. And he's already too far forward, and then he gets charged and he gets killed. So, a little unlucky for a Numlocked, I think, because I don't believe that Elevote was trying to do that deliberately. Is there anyone you'd like to see now after these games so far? I'd be happy to see a bunch of these players now. I mean, Alarm in particular. I think Banar's shown his worth over this amount of time as well. Who else? So this is the kind of thing where they're trying to block off. Normally the Mei will hold on this side. So they're trying to block off sightlines for the Mei so that they can't get walled off. But Elevote knows that they're going to do that, so he holds over here so that he can still get a sightline where he wants to be able to block the door. And you can hold forward really well with Mei and with Grav. So even though they get through the wall, Grav is used, they still manage to find the kills. It's a nice shatter as well from stand. Just to make sure that the fight's completely won. Yeah, Sharp looks good actually. But Sharp is way too young. I think Sharp's like 16 or something. This is overextension from Team Envy. So they wall a couple of people off, but I think they think that Numlocked was trapped. I think they kind of assumed that Elevote's wall was more diagonal, so that it would trap Numlocked a bit. But as they push in here, Stan goes for a charge, counter charge. They try and go aggressive, but they're just doing so much damage in this tiny little corridor. And also, Hafikals managed to isolate them with a wall of his own. So, and the barrier gets wasted too. Sound barrier just gets... I'm not sure whether it gets blocked or whether they just died too quickly. Yeah, it gets blocked as well by the ice wall. So, British Hurricane do a decent job of kiting that one backwards and blocking them off with the wall, but honestly, Team Envy just overchased. They should have realized when he was in a wall. This Blizzard is an attempt to clutch, but it doesn't really make sense. This fight really should have been British Hurricanes a while back if they had played point, so that you can't get fucked over by the Mei. Instead, they give up like maybe 20%. Here, when they've already got 2 picks, at this point, if they try and save sooner, but then just play the point. If they just play the point here instead of chasing these kills, they're going to be able to cap like 10% sooner at the very least. And they don't risk getting clutched on. But again, they're getting suckered into Team Envy's chaotic, see if we can clutch kind of style. Oh, Sharp is 17, okay. Is Sharp eligible for play next season then? I didn't think he was. Alright, so British Hurricane have wall and grab, so they're going to hold, or they should hold, forward. Okay, maybe they don't feel comfortable because someone died in that fight? I don't know. I would have expected them to hold forward here with wall and grab, because you can wall them off really effectively, and if you don't wall them off, you can grab them and find kills there as well. And they have trance and Team Envy doesn't, so... Grav, wall, die. So instead of holding forwards, they hold passive and do it there. But similar kind of setup. Now they have Blizzard for the final fight, and they also have Trance for the Grav. So this again should be a fight that they win, and if you win when you're on like 80+%, you're probably going to win the map because Team Envy are then just going to have to run in. So as long as British Hurricane put pressure on Team Envy here and try and force out a Grav in a place where everyone can survive it and everyone's into the Blizzard, they should be fine. But if they get like clutch shattered or something, well, I mean, we know that they lose, but just judging by the setup, they should be fine. Boop, shatter, catches Sharp, so they know that there's no Grav available. So at this point, they throw in the Blizzard. Sharp gets pinned. He gets killed. They get caught in a Grav, and Numlocked was on the floor. But Numlocked then holds his shield up, and it's this boop from Fire that really fucks British Hurricane. Because they're in a 6v4 now. Except Danid was being charged. Okay, so 6v5. But if they manage to help Tsuna here, they should still be in a great position to be able to keep everybody up. But Tsuna gets caught on the edge of this Blizzard because they got booped backwards. And these guys don't really know what to do. Bucket's just finished his Transcendence. None of them want to be... what do you call it? Frozen. And the Trance is out. And so instead of putting their shield up in front of Tsuna, they try and save themselves. And Team Envy just push back in with their ults and destroy them. But just losing that fight in itself is nuts. Because this is a 6v4. And that single boop just massively fucks them. Crazy. And yeah, they didn't have to play it that aggro, but it was also, I mean, I think this probably should have worked. When I rewatched this, actually, this does actually look more like a clutch from Team Envy, because that boop from Fire, I mean, the fact that they don't finish the kill on Fire is kind of nuts, honestly, because he gets, yeah, I mean, maybe that's the big problem from them. They kill Sharp here, and then they've already got the Blizzard down, and Fire is literally an ice block. So if anyone looks at Fire, Numlocked is on the floor at this point. But if Tsuna, where is Tsuna at this point? He's like over the top of Danit, I think. I don't think you can see Tsuna's name because Danit's over the top of it, but Tsuna is right here. If any of them kill Fire, I think they're fine. Now, having said that, maybe that's not true. Because if they were just released from the Grav here, I'm not even sure that whether they would have been able to get outside of the Blizzard. I don't know. Maybe the Grav Blizzard is just too difficult to beat at the end of this fight. I don't know. Not sure. Gets kind of crazy at the end here. So I'm not really sure. I mean, the important thing is that they want to put pressure on Sharp so that he has a shit Grav and that they can trance it. But they also kind of need the trance for the Blizzard. Baka like reaction trances to the shatter, so it lasts. I don't really know. I don't know. I think this is a bit of a nuts clutch from Team Envy, actually. I think you got to give him credit for this one. Anyway, overall, I think this is why I didn't think Li Jiang was that much of a throw, even though it was 2-0. But King's Row and Hanamura were real bad throws.